All right, let's set this scene. Picture this. It's the end of 2025. It has been a really tough year for Bitcoin's price. And, an even tougher one for MicroStrategy's stock. The chatter on social media is just deafening. The critics are out in full force, and it kind of feels like the bears are finally taking their victory lap. But is that really the whole story?
And that's the big question we're going to dig into. Because from the outside, if you're just looking at that stock chart, you might think, yep, game over. But when you pop the hood and look at what's actually going on inside the company, a completely different picture starts to form.
See, here's the paradox. The price action in 2025 tells a story of struggle, for sure, but the company's fundamentals, they've never been stronger. MicroStrategy has been scooping up Bitcoin at a record pace, pushing its strategy forward with this almost fanatical focus. So what gives? To really understand this disconnect, we have to get inside the mind of its co-founder.
And that brings us to the core philosophy of Michael Saylor. Now, this is an idea that runs completely against almost all conventional business wisdom. In a world where every business school preaches diversification, Saylor believes in the singular, massive danger of having a second idea.
This quote right here, it tells you everything you need to know. Saylor's watched his competitors try to grow by buying up other companies, thinking they were making these smart, diversified moves. And what happened? He watched every single one of them fail, get distracted, and eventually just get swallowed up by some faceless megacorp. For him, the biggest threat isn't another company. It's the temptation to lose focus.
He even frames it as this battle between arrogance and humility. The arrogant CEO, he thinks he can solve 100 different problems, spreading his resources thin. But the humble leader? He feels lucky, fortunate, to have found just one massive problem that's worthy of his entire life's work. It's a totally different way of looking at success. It's not about conquering many things, it's about mastering one.
And he illustrates this perfectly with a little history lesson. He calls it the Napoleon complex. It's the classic story of these alpha leaders who achieve something incredible and then they overreach, totally convinced they can conquer everything else. Just like Napoleon marching his army to their doom in the Russian winter, it's a path to self-destruction, and it's born from the success of that first great idea.
So it all boils down to this really simple idea, one that's been echoed by everyone from Marcus Aurelius to Steve Jobs. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I mean, with billions in capital, MicroStrategy could do almost anything. They could buy a bank, start an insurance company, become an exchange. But the real genius, the real discipline, lies in saying no to protect the one mission that truly matters.
Okay, so that's the philosophy. But what does this radical focus actually look like in the real world? Well, let's look at the numbers, because they tell a pretty incredible story.
Just look at this timeline of their Bitcoin holdings on Christmas Eve of each year. It's a story of unwavering, relentless accumulation. And check this out. Notice that slow year between 2021 and 2022. They only added about 8,000 Bitcoin. That must have been a tough time, full of doubt. But then, look at the explosion from 2023 onward. They didn't just hold on. They hit the accelerator, hard, right into the teeth of the market's fear.
And this number right here, it just puts everything into perspective. Over 671,000 Bitcoin. This isn't a hedge. This isn't some little side bet. This is an all-in, total commitment to a single idea, and it's being executed at a scale that is honestly hard to even wrap your head around.
So, as you can probably guess, a strategy this extreme has created a massive divide. On one side, you've got the short-term traders obsessing over the daily price action, and on the other, you have the long-term believers focused on that core philosophy. It's really a tale of two completely different timelines.
Now, the bear case is super easy to find. Just scroll through social media for like 5 minutes. You'll see tons of criticism, people pointing to that rough 2025 price action as definitive proof that the whole strategy has failed. They see it as reckless, irresponsible, and just a catastrophic concentration of risk.
But the bulls, well, they see this exact moment completely differently. It reminds me of this sentiment from figures like CZ, the former CEO of Binance. The argument is that the greatest opportunities are never found at all-time highs when everyone is euphoric. No, they're found in moments of maximum fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
And this is where the whole narrative starts to shift. You've got some market analysts who were bearish, warning people about the hype at the start of 2025, who are now completely flipping their script. They see the pendulum swinging back from the bottom, and they're now actively calibrating expectations to the upside, basically predicting that 2026 is going to be a great year. Which, of course, brings us to the end game. What is this one big idea that justifies all of this risk, all of this focus, and all of this conviction, especially in the face of so much criticism?
See, it's not just about stacking Bitcoin for the sake of it. The real goal is to build something on top of it, a new kind of financial instrument Saylor calls digital credit. The vision is to use their enormous Bitcoin holdings as collateral to create a product that offers a high yield, while at the same time stripping out most of Bitcoin's infamous volatility. Think of it like this. You use the value of your house to get a stable loan. The loan itself doesn't jump up and down with the housing market every day. They want to do something like that, but with a digital asset.
And this is the number that changes everything. The total market for this idea isn't in the millions or even billions. Saylor believes the credit market he's going after represents a $30 trillion opportunity. When your one big idea has a prize that large, pretty much every other opportunity out there starts to look like a microscopic distraction.
And this quote just brings it all home, full circle. This is why he says no. This is why he ignores all those pitches to become a bank or an insurance company. Because the single greatest threat to capturing a piece of that $30 trillion pie is to get distracted by a second idea, no matter how tempting it might seem at the time.
So as we wrap this up, it really leaves us with a powerful question to think about. In a world that just celebrates diversification and multitasking, MicroStrategy's entire journey forces us to reconsider. Maybe the greatest risk isn't betting it all on one truly massive idea, but rather it's that constant, seductive temptation to try and do everything else.